I have so much I want to explain to you guys. And if you are here on this episode right now to see a vehicle, you will see several vehicles in the shop, but this is really going to be touching on reflection over the last set of years. We started in 2020 and 2025 now. Oh, I'm going to lead into weird tangents. When Joey and I started this, my intent was the same thing as it is now. I just wanted to share the story. Whatever that is, good or bad, right or wrong, I just wanted to share the journey and the story. I'm like, this is a platform, I'm committed to what I'm doing. I'm committed to my career path and to building vehicles, and I just want to share the journey, especially the fabrication side of it, because when I was younger, 16, 17, 18, 19, there was no reference of Instagram. YouTube was minimal. I think the only thing I watched on YouTube was like felony fights, some crusty videos maybe, and then you'd be on forums. You wouldn't have information delivered like you just the accessibility. And so part of my intent is to share fabrication and share the process, and that's what I've tried to do with a lot of the builds and going through them. And it's not, I don't try, it's just my passion with expressing those things. But also part of this is my journey that I've been on, and Joey's been there holding that camera, doing this thing for a long time. Over the last 2 years, I'd say, we've been looking to consolidate a lot of our life into one thing. And what I mean by that is figure out where we can have our animals, we can have our house, we can have property, we can have a place to work, a business that I can walk to. And a lot of today is going to be talking about that and talking about this transition that we've been in. That was 2 years ago. We've been searching and going through the waves, and often tidal waves and storms of life, a lot of skeletons and a lot of just lessons over the years have been nipping at my heels over and over. Every time we're ready to transition into something huge, it feels like everything comes out of the woodwork and wants to get at me and test me and pull me down. And I haven't stopped, and I won't stop, and that's been the principle. Is every time I've been in a struggle where I feel like questioning my career, questioning what I'm doing, if this is the right thing for my family, is this the right thing in general, being so stressed out that I want to just quit on myself, whether it's myself or someone else, it's always been the thing is don't stop doing what you're doing, and I haven't. And now we're here, and I just want to share this transition with you guys, and we'll get back to our normal programming. We're just going to have a little bit different of a atmosphere and surrounding. I was born in Arcadia, California. We lived on a street called Naomi Street. I don't know how I pulled that out right now. I've searched for it before for conversation. We lived on Naomi Street, and around that area, we lived with my grandmother and my mom. It was all on the same roof, and my grandpa used to take me on his bicycle in this little plastic seat that sat behind him, and he'd take me over to this backyard of this house, and we'd feed these horses carrots. Now, being an owner of horses, don't feed my shit, but back then it was a really it left an imprint, feeding these horses, these giant beautiful creatures. My wife Taylor, she's wanted a horse her whole life. Her parents were not in the position to get her one. It didn't work out for her. And we got into this thing where when we ended up getting her horse, I snuck back there. We were at a rescue and they were busy, and I went back there and I found this huge horse. And I put my arms around this horse remember, we're gonna talk this time. So see you later on the next one if you don't want to deal with this, but this is more insight into my life. Put my arms around this big horse. It didn't know me. It accepted me. It let me love on it. It loved on me. And it gave me a sense of comfort and security that I hadn't felt in so long. Hi. And that horse, its name was Gunther. And Sterling. His first name was Sterling. So I go back and forth from Samson to Sterling. Hey, don't eat that thing. Anyways, I got something from these horses that I hadn't felt any other way. Let's walk out. Let's walk out. That I hadn't felt any other way, and it was a sense of, like I said, comfort and safety. And it did something to me. I held onto this horse for what felt like 5 minutes, and it let me do that. You know, it was in the corral, and so there was a kind of a wall, a controlled wall there. And then let's see, Selena. And then, you know, I came out of that and I felt lighter. Something. My mind was clear. I realized that I hadn't been thinking about anything. I'd just been sitting there, and I got this clarity. And I told Taylor, I said, I need to have a horse. I have to have a horse. I've always been intrigued by them, but we got to make this happen. And it set this tone for our life very late into the game, where we've invested into these animals because they are so meaningful to us. Part of it is when you live in the city, you got to, it's a fly mask, okay? You have to keep these guys at like a boarding, you know, a horse board. And essentially it's like you're renting an apartment space. Well, let's cut the shit, okay? So we fell in love with horses. I love building vehicles, and that's my passion, but on top of that, you know, for me, it's not having my own vehicle. It's being able to have a serene place to be with my family and to have animals and to find peace. I think once you get older, peace starts to be an extremely valuable commodity. The same with your physical health. So hey. So this has kind of made a turning point in our life, and we're gonna go outside because I know you just want to get that camera right now, okay? So say bye to Sam. Bye, Sam. We'll see you. There's a lot to digest here because it's like, you know, when I started getting older, especially the last few years, I just turned 40. 37, 38, I start looking at life differently. Something clicks, I start looking at, okay, I've done a better part of my life. I've lived at least half my life. I hope I can see the day when I see my grandkids. But I feel 25. But man, I start thinking about all this stuff and what legacy I'm gonna leave behind. What value do I have every day of my life? What am I chasing? Family, friends, builds, everything. And part of that was complementary to how do we get this going where we can be in a place where we can facilitate family and work, you know, and our animals and peace. And that's where we're at. I feel like we could spend a lot of time on this, but the bottom line is for the last 11 weeks, we've been building out this property. This is gonna be our new facility. This is our ranch. All of this wasn't here. You know, we can get into that another time. I think what we're gonna do with the campaign for YouTube is cover a little more than just the build updates, and we'll press on that and we'll have that going, but it just makes sense for us to catch up. And I wanna show you guys around and show you, you know, you have to think back when, we can walk if you want, Joey. When we were filming everything at the previous studio, I was pretty conscientious about not giving a tour and not showing the whole facility, because there wasn't a lot of facility. And I felt like the cars that we were building and continue to build represent so much more value than this tiny little spot that we're constructing them in. And I know that that's my insecurity, because there's probably something powerful to be said about that, just by building $1 million car in this little 2,200 square foot shop space. But it just didn't feel like something I needed to exploit. I wanted to showcase each vehicle, and now we're transitioning into something that makes sense, which is, you know, over 3 times as big, and it has the creative space and the room and the capacity for us to operate like we need to. Not doesn't necessarily mean that we need to scale up or anything, but we have the room to do what we need to do that we've always needed, and now we're not bursting at the seams. You know, when I first started fabrication and when I was working out of my garage, it was a 2-car garage. There was workbenches on the sides of it. There was a washer and dryer still, some cupboards, and I would put one vehicle in there, and I cut my teeth like that. I loved it. I didn't have a lot of tools. I had a plasma cutter and a grinder and a couple welders and a bender and a notcher. And I got everything under the sun done like that. I was very accustomed to that, and that's why I can work in scumbag environments where I'm super tight and I'm funneling through areas. And you know, the guys would always, back at the old shop, they'd always be like, dude, it's so tight in here, there's no room, we need more room. We'd be like rolling the tube bender outside to bend tubes, you know, or if we had to work in there, we'd move cars out every day just to be able to work in there and then put them back in. And it was just an insane juggle that was, at the end of the day, just inefficient. And the morale of having to do that stuff versus having like a place to showcase all this stuff, just not optimal. One of the greatest things that I've realized, and I don't think it's the greatest thing, but it's one of the most prominent things, is my expectations. And this goes all the way home with everything. Expectations on how something is built, expectations on my kids and relationships and life and taste and smell, and just, it's all inclusive. And it's something where I live a lot of things out before they're even a reality, right? So I think about how can I present our new transition. I want to open this door, and I want to have everything perfect, and I want to have everything shiny, and I want to have all the floors clean and organized, like this expectation that I have in my brain. And what I realize is I'm never going to be able to close out the level of expectations I have. The only tool that I can create and work on is just the tool of transitioning into accepting what they actually are and moving on. You know, if it doesn't line up exactly how I expected it, as long as that's not something like the build, because the build I can control. But things like this, I have to accept that this is going to take time. And that's how this is. I have this vision of how I want this place, but it's going to take time to get it there, because it just, you know, it's set up, it's organization. We have to keep the business running, so we can't just be done. We have to be working on cars. It's a thing, and I need to let that go. So I want to give you guys just a brief taste of what we're working with, and I want to lay out my vision, just like I would on a build, of where I'm going to take this thing and what it's going to look like in the next few months. Okay. So this is going to be our new studio. It's pretty big. It's under 10,000 square feet without giving exact specs. The vision I'd like here. Have you guys met Hank? That's the other part, is we get Hank now. And Hank's going to be one of the daily characters here. He's 10 years old. He's been with me. We got him when Logan was a year old. He was about 8 inches. And there's his woman. Hank was with me every day of my off-road fabrication career life up until I got up to the last place, because there was dogs there that couldn't get along with him. And you know, I guess they each couldn't get along with each other. You're good. You can work. Okay. I'm just gonna sit here and talk everybody's ear off. You don't look awkward. You're doing more than I am. That's Colin, you guys. Do you remember Colin? Anyways, Hank's been my everyday dog. He's been through thick and thin, and so now it's a full circle that he's back here, and he's with the shop. I expect this place, we've done quite a bit already, but I want this place to represent a gallery. The more established we get, and I feel as a brand, these cars all, one after another, start to resemble their own expression. They are not just a sum of the same parts with a different shell. I mean, some of it is, but you know, all the chassis and all the work and just every bit of these cars is one-off, hand-built, bespoke, unique, crafted vehicles. And they all, when they start to come together, you look back and you're like, these things all have their own expression. I want to be able to facilitate a workspace where they can be shown like that, like an art gallery. With that doesn't mean that there's not going to be metal sparks being thrown around and there's not going to be cleanup every day that needs to happen, but I think just the overall look of not having any stuff on the ground, no parts, no boxes, no nothing, all that stuff needs to be put away and tidy. Toolboxes are the only thing. The toolboxes will live under the pallet racking where the lighting is, you know, and then you'll just kind of have welders and miscellaneous larger tools that move around with the job plus your work table. So at some point, what I'd like to do is I'd like to come through that door again, and I'd like to have everything buttoned up like that, and it's going to take some time. We've been organizing and moving for weeks on end, and you know, we're at a point here where we do need to work. Luke is our newest guy. Luke's been taking on a lot of the wiring and installing lights and wiring up some of the machines. But it feels endless and it feels overwhelming. And instead of trying to give you some polished thing, I'd rather just check in and let you know where we're at with the journey here and start covering these vehicles. You know, you can expect a lot more content and a lot more wholesome content as far as, not like I've said earlier, not just updates, but hands-on and maybe even some more personal stuff, because you'll probably see some family members and some animals more often. Do you have those, or is that from my refrigerator?
I have them now.
You got them now? Hell yeah. Have you tried a different flavor?
No. Well, I tried the blueberry.
Yeah.
I told you, and I'm like, I don't want that. And
First Form, energy drinks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You guys, this is Nick. Say hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Nick's my neighbor. And Nick, and it's not a wife. Is it a wife?
It's a wife.
Okay. Nick and Jen.
Jen.
Cool. Nailed it. Have been huge supporters over the years. And when it came to show up for helping, you offered help. And see, it makes me emotional, so I'm going to try not to do this. But there's people like Nick that have shown up for this move that busted their ass and they did not need to, and they didn't owe me anything. It's the same with Kyle Monson. You know, and I want to thank you.
Absolutely, brother.
Thank you so much.
Anytime.
So he's helped me with this whole transition, and there's been a couple key players that have, like, trailers, transports, time, resources. It took a small army of guys to get us where we're at here. And I've never had people show up for me like it has been with this.
It's the right thing to do.
I get that. But I go deeper. Then I go, okay, is it because, like, now I'm more tapped into being the better version of myself, and then, you know, I'm rendering these people that come out of the woodwork where I'm like, holy shit, like, and part of it I'm like, I don't deserve this. I don't fucking deserve this, you know, and it's just been incremental help. So anyways, this is our intro into our transition at the ranch here, and we'll start just trickling in more updates. And you know, and over time, I think we'll be able to showcase more of this, but I've been constrictive because I don't want to show our messes and our own organization in progress, or organization in progress. We'll see you. Hi. Hi. He makes me smile. That's the whole thing.